Splitgate 2 will go back to beta to undergo a massive rework amid more layoffs and Splitgate 1 shutdown. Oh my god, this game literally cannot catch a break to save its life. So Splitgate 2, the game that aimed to make FPS great again, is going back to the drawing board less than 3 months after it initially released on Steam. And honestly, I think there's been more people actually talking about Splitgate 2 than people actually playing the game itself. Anyone else getting marathon vibes from this, or is that just me? I've already covered all the controversies that followed the game after its appearance at the Summer Game Fest, and whilst that may be a factor in all of this, it appears as though the game has only been facing more flurries of challenges since then. So this is the full statement written by the official Splitgate 2 account, written by the co-founders of 1047 Games, the developers behind Splitgate 2, Ian Prue and Nicholas Bagamian. And it basically reads, "To the Splitgate community, we believe in Splitgate 2. This game means everything to us. It's been our life for almost 10 years, starting in our dorm room, and we're more committed than ever to delivering the incredible experience you deserve." And that first paragraph is actually very interesting to me, because looking at 1047's history, as far as I'm able to see, they have a very limited portfolio, only ever really developing the Splitgate series. The original Splitgate, which is scheduled to be shut down in a month or so, and Splitgate 2, which is being reverted back to the beta. It's not exactly the most impressive resume. And the next paragraph reads, "We've heard your feedback and we agree with you. We launched too early. We had ambitious goals with Splitgate 2, and in our excitement to share it with you, we bit off more than we could chew. We rushed certain features, made some boneheaded mistakes, and most importantly, we didn't give you the polished, portal-filled mayhem you fell in love with." And yes, there were a couple of issues flagged with this game. I covered this in my last video, but prices were at one point obnoxious in this game, charging $80 for certain bundles. Granted, it's not the highest prices we've seen in the gaming industry, but it doesn't exactly create a good impression for players who log into the game for the first time. Other issues were also raised in a very popular Reddit thread. The Battle Royale mode, which was the major highlight in the Summer Game Fest, felt half-baked to a lot of people who played it. Challenges were not working properly, a lot of the characters in-game weren't really all that compelling story-wise or even gameplay-wise, and the portals themselves actually felt kind of restrictive on certain maps in a game all about portals. But looking at the community sentiments and the Steam reviews in general, it's clear that there isn't exactly a single glaring issue that's holding back the game necessarily, but rather a bunch of smaller problems that's making the game experience fine, but there's nothing in it that really stands out as extraordinary. It doesn't really stand out as a unique game per se, and people aren't exactly rushing to play it anytime soon, but it's rather one of those generic shooters that you just quickly play and forget. And on top of all of that, let's just call it what it is, right? The aesthetics look really bland. Like, who's actually excited to play these characters? When you're making a new IP, you have to nail it out the door. It's why so many companies are relying on established IPs, because at least then you have people hooked on characters and stories that they're familiar with. I mean, it's not impossible to make it big with a new IP and new faces. I mean, take Overwatch for instance, the very game that popularized the hero shooter genre with a completely new cast of characters. And even this year has its fair share of new IPs and faces taking the spotlight, but it's a very high bar to reach that is very rarely ever achieved. I mean, seriously, do you really think that your average player is going to be excited about a new operator introduced to a game like Rainbow Six Siege? Or do you think more people are going to be talking about Deadpool and Thanos potentially being added to a game like Marvel Rivals? And speaking of aesthetic, the game just looks plastic. You look at games like Doom the Dark Ages, right, which has this dark, gothic aesthetic, which is then contrasted by this intense heavy metal music. It is unapologetically edgy. And then you have the Borderlands series, which pretty much popularized the cel-shaded look and has this sort of Mad Max mixed with sci-fi aesthetic to it, but isn't afraid to be weird and wacky with its designs. Splitgate, it looks like toothpaste. It looks like it just went through 9 levels of HR before it went out the door. Nothing really stands out aside from the portals, which in itself is a really cool mechanic. They just need to refine the gameplay a bit more, really hone in on its identity and understand what kind of game are they actually trying to create here. I mean, you can't exactly say that you're going to redefine the arena genre and then just add in a battle royale. It's kind of contradictory to player expectations, you know? So we're going back to beta. We'll be heads down until early next year, rebuilding major parts of the game that captured the spirit of what made Splitgate special. If they plan to release in 2026, all I can say is, well, good luck with that, because there is a massive title releasing that year that every gaming developer and publisher is avoiding like the plague. plague. That means reworking progression from the ground up, adding more portals to our maps, simplifying monetization, refocusing on classic game modes you've been asking for, and more, which we'll be sharing soon. Now more than ever, we need your help. We're returning not just to our roots in what we build, but in how we build it, with you. That means more playtests, more surveys, more listening, and truly being community first. Our goal is to combine the DNA of the first game with the best improvements from the second. And you know what? I'm actually seeing more studios adopt this strategy. Whether that's through early access or through beta tests or play tests in general, actually inviting players over to actually test the game before it launches in order to make sure that they're shaping a quality product and also a game that's in demand. We've seen this recently with the Battlefield franchise and the disastrous launch that was 2042, which, I mean, after that, they really needed to reconsider how they approached this franchise. And even Baldur's Gate 3 became a smash hit after years of community interaction and feedback shaping the game to the masterpiece that it was. I mean, it still is, but you know what I mean. You can start off small and then work your way up with the players who are really invested with the IP and game, and work from there to create a game that's actually in demand, that actually meets player expectations, making something that people will actually play instead of just being one big, massive, expensive waste of time. The next part reads, rebuilding the core experience isn't a quick fix, it's a long-term commitment. To give ourselves the time to build the Splitgate you deserve, we've made the incredibly difficult decision to reduce certain roles and shift our resources to focus on this rework. Yeah, that sounds like layoffs, because that's exactly what's happened. In June 2025, 1047 Games disclosed that it was making an unknown number of redundancies. These roles included 3D environment artists, level designers, producers, and more, and on top of all of that, the co-founders shared that they wouldn't be taking salaries. And when you look at the Steam charts, well, it's not exactly hard to imagine why they had to resort to this. I mean, it's just been a downwards trend since its appearance at the Summer Game Fest. It's a far cry from its 25,000 peak to just under 2,000, less than 10% of what it was. Granted, this doesn't take console populations into consideration, but I'm willing to bet that it's not looking that much better. It certainly hasn't held up enough to prevent layoffs. And it also shared that yes, it is shutting down the original Splitgate game, because it was reportedly costing hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep running, despite having player counts between the double to triple digits. By comparison, Battlefront 2, a game that hasn't seen support in nearly half a decade, has reached a concurrent player count of 10,000 on Steam alone, thanks to community efforts. This game is so young, yet it fails to make a splash in a scene filled with titles that are close to, or even in some cases over, a decade old. They ended the statement by saying, "We've faced a lot of dark days and have made many mistakes, but we've learned a lot and are as determined as ever to make Splitgate as great as possible. Splitgate has been our life for 10 years, and we wouldn't have it any other way. We've got work to do, but we aren't giving up. We love this game, and we love this community too much to ever quit, so we won't. See you in the arena, Ian and Nicholas." What I'm interested in, however, is how hard this game flopped despite all its marketing. Probably not to the extent of Raid Shadow Legends, but I've seen my fair share of Let's Play streamers and channels covering or playing the game. They had this whole Splitgate showdown where you could sign up to be part of a faction representing one of your favorite streamers. Think people like Nadeshot, Tim the Tatman, XQC, Shroud, you name it. I also came across my fair share of sponsored videos and streams, and that's when I stumbled across this post on LinkedIn, which claims that 1047 Games, allegedly, spent over $400,000 on influencers. I gotta be honest, I don't really know how accurate this is. It's from Steamforged, and I'm not entirely sure how reliable they are. For all we know, they could have spent a lot less, or perhaps a lot more. There's nothing really concurrent here, but even they themselves admit that this is based all on estimates, so take everything that's said here with a massive grain of salt. But I figured it was at least worth covering. So what do you get when you spend nearly $400,000 on influencer marketing? Well, from May 30th to June 13th, 1 week before its release, Splitgate 2 saw 27 million views, naturally. 2 million of which was sponsored, and the most popular platforms being, well, YouTube Shorts and Twitch, which is to be expected, right? However, what's the most interesting to me is that, according to Steamforged, most of the budget was supposedly allocated to Twitch at $340k, whereas on the other hand, YouTube Shorts only got $14k. And despite having no sponsored content whatsoever, TikTok actually rose to be the second most popular platform when it came to natural views at over 7 million. And here's another graph, allegedly, saying how much it spent on individual influencers, with the top creators being Summit1G, Grizzy and Lydia Violet. The most I can confirm is that yes, Summit 1G and Grizzy did have sponsored content, and Lydia Violet even shared a short of her playing with the CEO. As for amounts, well, your guess is as good as mine. But clearly this didn't bring the push the game needed as player counts continue to decline. I'll be very interested in seeing just how drastic these changes will be for Splitgate 2, and more than that, whether it will be enough to bring back players on top of attracting a new one. Since it's a free-to-play game, it needs to have a sizable following in order to stand a chance. And Splitgate 2 just hasn't had that explosive moment like we've seen from other games this year, like Marvel Rivals, Expedition 33, and Monster Hunter Wilds. The competition for a gamer's time and attention is more fierce than ever, and as a result, you can't really play it safe anymore. Games need to go above and beyond if they ever hope to have some form of longevity, especially since now more than ever players are returning back to old games. And I'm not just talking about the odd gems that have resurfaced like Battlefront 2, I'm talking about the games that have been at the top of their league for the longest time with a cult-like following. Think Roblox, Fortnite, and Minecraft for instance. But yeah, a very sudden but not unexpected move from 1047 Games, and one that I hope pays off in the end. I do think there is potential with this game, and I think there is demand for the arena shooters to return to form, if you will. And I think it's commendable that they still have faith in Splitgate 2, as opposed to just taking it to the backyard. But that's all for me. I gotta split, and I'll catch you next time.